Welcome to another episode of Global Investors Podcast. I'm your host, Charles Carillo. Today we have Mark Podolsky. He is a raw, undeveloped land investor who over the past 20 years has completed over 6,000 transactions, including buying, selling, and leasing raw land as an investment. Additionally, he wrote the book Dirt Rich, the ultimate guide to building passive income through raw land. So thank you so much for being on the show today, Mark.
Charles, thank you so much for having me.
So you have an interesting background prior to getting involved, and you had an exit story too, which we'll get involved with too, of leaving your W-2. But prior to getting involved in investing in real estate and raw land, I mean, can you tell us a little bit about yourself, both personally and professionally?
Yeah, I mean, personally, I live in Scottsdale, Arizona, and I have 3 kids, and I really just love to really help people solve not just their money problems, but their time problems. So my vocation is really doing that every day. And, I do a lot of very woo-woo things like breath work and meditate and hike and ski and travel to keep my mind right. But it's all in service of helping people solve not just their money problems, but their time problems, so that once they have enough passive income, it exceeds their fixed expenses, and they're working because they want to, not because they have to, I think people can really live their best lives.
Yeah, no, that's great. How did you get involved with raw land as an asset class? I mean, it's not one of your top choices, I would think, when people say I'm getting involved with real estate investing. There's other, choices out there that are more common, let's say. And how did you end up falling in or picking raw land, vacant land as a investment class?
Yeah, it was by accident, really. I was, if we rewind the tape to 2000, I was a miserable 45-minute commute to work and back, micromanaged investment banker, specializing in mergers and acquisitions with private equity groups. And Charles, it got so bad for me, I wouldn't get the Sunday blues, anticipating Monday coming around, to get the Friday blues, anticipating the weekend going by really fast and having to be back at work on Monday. So my firm hires this guy, and he's telling me there's a side hustle. He's buying up raw land, pennies on the dollar. He's flipping them online. And he's making a 300% return on his money. And I'm looking at companies all day long, and a great company, great, has 15% EBITDA margins or free cash flow. Average company's 10%. I'm looking at companies all day long, less than 10%. So of course, I don't believe him. And I've got $3,000 saved up for car repairs. I go to New Mexico with him. I do exactly what he tells me to do. I buy 10 half-acre parcels, an average price of $300 each. I flip them online, and they all sell for an average price of $1,200 each. It worked. So I took all that money and went to another auction, Arizona, which is where I live. And again, it's 2000. There's no one in the room, and I buy lots of acreage for like nothing. I sell all that land, and I made over $90,000 cash. So I go to my wife, and she's pregnant. I said, honey, I'm going to quit my job and become a full-time land investor. And she said, absolutely not. So I said, okay. So it took 18 months for the land investing income to exceed the investment banking income, and then I quit. And I've been doing it full time ever since and love it.
That's great. That's a great story. So can you give us an overview of your land investing strategy, kind of from buying raw land at deep discounts and then strategically selling them and generating passive income?
Yeah, Charles, let's use you as a case study. So you're in Florida, and I'll assume that you own 5 acres of raw land in Arizona, where I live, but you owe $200 in back taxes. So you're advertising 2 important things to me. Number one, you have no emotional attachment to the raw land. You're in Florida, the property's in Arizona. And number 2, you're distressed financially in some weird way. Because when we don't pay for things like our property taxes, we don't value them in the same way. As a result, the county treasurer keeps sending you notices saying, Charles, if you don't pay your property taxes, you're going to lose that property to a tax deed or tax lien investor. So all I'm going to do is look at the comparable sales on your 5-acre parcel for the last 12 to 18 months. I'm going to take the lowest comparable sale and divide by 4. Let's say it's $10,000 for easy math. So I'm going to send you an actual offer of $2,500 for your 5-acre parcel. Now, you accept it. Because why? For you, $2,500 is better than nothing. In reality, 3 to 5% of people will accept my quote-unquote top dollar offer. But now that you've accepted it, I have to go through due diligence or in-depth research. I have to confirm you still own the property. I have to make sure the back taxes are only $200. I want to make sure there's no breaks in the chain of title, no liens or encumbrances. So I have this property checklist that I outsourced to my team in Jamaica. It costs about $11, and they're connected to an American title company, and we'll do our due diligence. Now, if I was investing, say, more than $5,000, I wouldn't take any title risk. I would just close traditionally through a title company. But this is only $2,500. We'll assume everything checks out. And so now I'm going to send you a check for $2,300, the treasurer check for $200. I want it free and clear. Now, Charles, I'm going to sell this property 30 days or less. I'm going to make it cash flow like a rental home. So I have a built-in best buyer. Do you know who it is?
Neighbors.
The neighbors. You got it. The neighbors. Exactly. Exactly. So I'm going to send out neighbor letters saying, hey, here's your opportunity. Protect your privacy. Protect your views. Know your neighbor. So oftentimes the neighbors will buy. Now, if they pass, I'll go to my buyers list. The buyers list passes. I'll go to a little website you may have heard of called Meta or Facebook buy-sell groups in the marketplace. And then I just go to lands. Landmodo.com, land.com, landandfarm.com, landsamerica.com, landflip.com, landhub.com, landcentury.com. These are platforms where people buy and sell raw land. But the secret is in the pricing. So all I'm going to ask for is a $2,500 down payment. And then I'll make it a car payment. Let's say $249 a month at 9% interest, like 60 months. So Charles, I get this one-time sale. I'm going to get my money out in the down payment. I could go 6 to 10 months out. And now I'm going to get $249 a month at 9% interest. Charles, no renters, no rehabs, no renovations, no rodents. And because I'm not dealing with a tenant, I'm exempt from Dodd-Frank, RESPA, and the SAFE Act, all this owner's real estate legislation. So then it's a simple game. Can we create enough land notes where our passive income exceeds our fixed expenses, and then we're truly free?
Oh, that's a pretty fantastic strategy. So it's really, what are the reasons? I mean, what are the, other than finding that we're back on taxes, are there any other methods you would use for kind of locating, identifying these properties that can be purchased where you might have an owner in distress?
Yeah, I mean, our lowest hanging fruit is going to be someone that lives out of state and owes back taxes. But once I've established a market there, I'm going to send out an offer to everybody. Now, I'm not going to know by looking at a list of property owners who's distressed, but who's not. But we can assume, given the marriage rate at 50%, someone's going through a divorce, someone's, maybe died, and now you've got an heir who doesn't know or what to do with the property, doesn't want the property. So you'll have that baked in to any property list where you're sending out offers.
That makes great sense.
Do you have money sitting in the stock market and you're worried about it? Or worse, you have money sitting at the bank, not keeping up with inflation? My name is Charles Carillo, founder and managing partner of Harborside Partners. And since 2006, I've been investing my money and my family's money into income-producing properties. These are real assets, real properties with real addresses that produce real cash flow. At Harborside Partners, we provide passive investors who love real estate with a turnkey investing solution. If you want to put your money to work in real estate but can't find deals, don't have the time to get funding, and the last thing that productive people want to do is manage real estate. We find the deals, we fund the deals, and we manage the tenants, the termites, and the properties. Partner with us at investwithharborside.com. That's investwithharborside.com. Go to investwithharborside.com. If you love real estate, you like the idea of passive income, and believe that income-producing properties will appreciate over time, go to investwithharborside.com. That's investwithharborside.com.
So when you're buying land, what kind of markets would you say are some of the most sought after, let's say, for people that are going to be your end buyers?
Yeah, I mean, Charles, let's be honest, right? Nobody wakes up and thinks to themselves, boy, I'd like to buy some raw land today in Minnesota. Unless you live in Minnesota.
Yeah.
Right? So we want to focus on those sunshine states, Florida, Texas, Arizona, Nevada, New Mexico. How about California, a little bit in the Northwest, Oregon, Washington, and then parts of the Midwest where it's beautiful and treed. So that's some of your biggest buyer pool, and there's just a ton of inexpensive raw land available.
When you're looking at these different deals, you say you check to make sure that everything's fine with the title, and you have your team that does that, which is great. You've outsourced all that to some VAs. How does it work with? Is there any other problems that could happen physically on the property that you have to be aware of, such as if there's not a way for people to get to it, or other issues that you have to check out before you just buy something?
Yeah, I mean, this is why I'm going to focus on the Southwest, Northwest, and Florida. I'm going to avoid the Northeast because I don't want to go anywhere where there can be potentially a Superfund site. You can go to EPA.gov and make sure you're not buying in a Superfund site. But a Superfund site basically means that an industrial company has polluted that land. If you buy it, you are then responsible for that millions and millions of dollars of cleanup. So when we're doing our due diligence, we want to make sure that we're not buying in an environmentally dangerous area. For example, that's why I'll avoid those industrial areas in Ohio, Pennsylvania, New Jersey. Short of that, really, we're not going to get too picky with this rural undeveloped land because it's rural and it's undeveloped. And so as long as there's GPS coordinates and somebody can find it, I don't have a problem with it because I'm not the buyer. You're not the buyer. And so what I've discovered is that there's a pig for every barn. And we have a massive buyer pool of people that just want inexpensive raw land in the United States. And they're not very picky. They're not looking for $1 million ranches or country club properties.
Interesting. When in multifamily and other like commercial asset classes, when they're going out, the bankers, they call it like the phase one, right? They're going out, they're checking to make sure that, like you were saying, there wasn't a dry cleaner there wasn't a garage there, and then they do they get the phase two and further if there's issues or they think there might be an issue, and you pay like a few $100s on your closing, something like this. What for you? I mean, how does that process go? Because obviously it's not in phase one. How do you check to make sure if you were buying in one of those areas that you had mentioned that might have a higher chance of that? Is there a way of easily doing that it'd be more cost effective?
Yeah. I mean, we'll do a $50 Craigslist gig and send somebody out local, have them shoot video for us, fill out our property report checklist, and scope out that property.
And when you're selling the properties, obviously, if the whole point of this is putting everything on payments and building that, like as you said, 60-month, 5-year passive income stream, which is awesome. Do you ever sell these straight up for cash? Is that something that happens often, or is it a very rare occurrence?
I don't market it to sell for cash, but clearly there's people that are Dave Ramsey risk averse. They pay cash for everything, and they're going to pay cash for their land. But I'd say that for my portfolio, that's about 5 to 10% of people. The majority are going to be paying on terms, which for me is what I want because I don't want cash. I want cash flow. I think it's the antidote to financial insecurity.
Yeah, no, for sure. It's interesting because there's certain industries I see with raw land, and there's like certain ones that are all sold on payments. So like cars are sold on payments, boats are sold on payments, furniture sold on payments. There's not, you can't even find a cash price with a lot of these things when you're searching for them. So I think that's kind of one of those things when you said that, when you're looking at different land sites, it's some of them will have cash price, but a lot of them will all be done on payment terms, which I found was very interesting when I was looking into it. So the other thing happens, obviously you're going out, you're putting a mortgage on these properties. As you said before, there's a chance that people might not be emotionally attached to them. I mean, how often do buyers that you deal with default? And how does that process go with like taking them back?
Yeah, so it's a great question. So we're not going to use a deed of trust and put a mortgage or a lien on that property. We're going to use a land contract. And a land contract states that during the time that you're paying down your promissory note, that if you go into default, you have 30 days to cure your default. If you don't cure your default, we keep your down payment, we keep all your monthly payments, and we resell it to another buyer. So because we're not doing credit checks, we actually don't mind defaults. So in this county right now, we're looking at about a 10 to 12% default rate. And so when that happens is they've basically lowered our cost basis and we do it again. And it extends out our return on investment.
Yeah. It's almost like the renter center type model where, you pay and you're like almost like renting it until you own it kind of a thing. And then if you miss anything, they keep everything you have. You know what I mean? So
exactly.
Yeah, that's a great way. I was just going to ask that about the due diligence, because obviously the less friction you have about getting that person into, let's just say, this property, the easier it's going to be to sell. So there's no credit checks. Are there any other type of due diligence other than they're actually speaking to the person and selling it to the person that they say they are? Is there any other kind of checks or KYC that you need to do or review that you found to kind of lower that default rate, even though 10 or 12% is very low for this type of strategy?
I don't want that low default rate, honestly, because it's so lucrative. But essentially, you can just, if you want a lower default rate, you just raise your down payment. And the more skin they have in the game, the lower that default rate's going to be. But again, I'm not doing credit checks. I'm not, saying to somebody, oh, your income level's too low. We're not going to sell you this property. If they can put down the down payment, they can secure it. They can afford the monthly payments and they stop paying, no problem. We'll take it back and we'll just sell it again at a lower cost basis.
Before we get into kind of how you've set up your business and made it much more automated, which is something that's very interesting, is one thing is other than doing the title checks, taking a larger down payment, is there anything else that you would suggest to people, land investors, to kind of mitigate their risk that you might have seen people fall through the cracks before and make mistakes on?
I would say that it's hard to make a mistake in land, especially if you're buying at the right price. So we're making our money on the buy. I don't often see people overpaying out of the gate if they've gotten training. Now, if they haven't gotten any training, I'd say get training for sure. So assuming that they have a reasonable amount of training, then the biggest mistake I see people making is actually fear. So I send out these offers. It takes about 6 weeks to get returned accepted offers. And then I say to myself, okay, I'm done sending out offers until I sell this piece of property. And then I sell the property, and then I've lost all my momentum of deal flow, and I become a chicken company with no chicken. So I'd say that's really the biggest mistake I see newbies make, is this one in, one out, fearful mentality, because they all sell. It's just a matter of time and getting your pricing right. And so oftentimes people don't have that confidence, and they they pass up on good deals, or they lose deal flow because of that.
So all the money, like in real estate in general, all the money's made on the buy. How do I know when I'm going to buying a property and it's not as easy to decide and figure out a value for a property, which makes this lucrative if you know what you're doing? How do I come about with that, a range or an offer price for the sellers?
Yeah, so you can just really look at that comparable sale, divide by 4, get yourself a 300% margin of safety. So that's why we're going to take the lowest comparable sale. And then we'll look at our data as we send out those offers. If under 3% accepted, I know I've come in too low for the market. But if over 5% accepted, I've got to retrade. I came in too high. So I really want to know my numbers on that acceptance rate.
Where are you checking those comparable sales? Is it through land records or is it through a website?
Yeah, so it's all public data. You can go through, there's tons of different places to go now. But the easiest place might just be going to the county assessor on the websites.
So you're finding parcels that are near yours, similar sizes, figuring out whatever that cost per acreage is for something there, and then working out, like you said, dividing it by 4 and knowing that that's going to be a fair market price, or, a deep discount price where you can put on payments and make some income on.
Yeah, absolutely. And so I could go to a website like landmodo.com and even just reverse engineer what are other people selling these properties for as well, and get a range.
Yeah, that's what I was going to ask. I wasn't sure where you're coming up, but how both ways, obviously going through and seeing actual closed sales would be, I would think, a little bit more accurate and probably a little bit more conservative than seeing what someone's probably trying to sell it that possibly might have paid over for it. Even though that, like you said before, if you're 4xing what the price you paid for a property is, it's kind of difficult to lose money on that. But it's an interesting system of how that works. So you mentioned briefly when you're talking about how your business works, and you're sending out a lot of offers. So is these offers, how does this automate it to send out? Because I know someone that's a land investor down here in Florida, they send out like 10, 20,000 offers a month that get sent out. And I never really asked them about how they were, how are they figuring out the system that they had in place for putting a specific offer out to every owner?
Right. So the first thing is you're going to use two pieces of software. So 90% of my business is automated with software, inexpensive virtual assistants. So the software that I use is called lgpass.com, and it's my own proprietary software. So we just upload a list, and then we have an API where the mail then automatically goes out. And so I can also manage it where I don't want to send out 10,000 offers in one day because I want to get data back. So I might send out 30 offers a day, get that data back, see what my response rate is, and then I can essentially adjust my offer by a dollar amount or even a percentage amount in my software. Then once it comes back, I can get my team in there as well. They get permissions, user permissions. We can do our due diligence in the software as well, and then show where we're marketing the land. And then it also, when we do our sale, it'll automate the promissory note, the purchase sale agreement, and the land sale contract. So what used to take me 20 minutes of paperwork, now it takes me about the time to press a button. And I don't even need to do it. My team can do it. Then once that property is sold, we have to manage the note. And we created a set and forget it payment system called geekpay.io. And so we collect our down payment via geekpay.io, and then we pull out via ACH the monthly payments, but their checking account, the writing number, and account number from our borrower. And then we also can collect the property taxes. We can charge a note collection fee. We can charge a note setup fee. And so using geekpay.io, it's actually a profit center. It's the only software I know that actually makes me money.
Interesting. So that was the other thing too, is going to be like the servicing. So it's all done with your own software, because servicing can get very expensive if you're paying, a set price or maybe you're not percentage because these are lower amounts, but a set price per month. So you're taking care of all that. And then you're collecting for all the property taxes to make sure there's no issues. And then you're paying the county directly.
Correct.
Now there's no structures on these properties, so insurance isn't a requirement. Is that correct?
That's correct. Right. And through LG Pass, you can even make your tax payments and you can pay your seller as well using that software.
Interesting. Yeah. Obviously, you're now becoming the lender on it, so you can make your decisions if there was insurance or not. But obviously, if there's no structures on there or anything like that, you have someone you're paying for to go check out the property, then really there's not really any risk.
There's no risk. You can get an umbrella policy if somebody falls on your piece of property.
You mentioned for advice for new investors, and one of the first things you said was getting trained. Is there anything else that once someone gets started, they're beginning their process of becoming a raw land investor, that you think are some of the most important things to kind of get in place before they start making offers? Or is it really go out, make offers, and kind of everything else will work out?
Yeah, I would learn as much as I can about the land investing business. Anybody can go out and start making offers and make lowball offers. And then next thing you know, you've built yourself a land investing job. And so really what I want people to do is create a business for themselves and get out of what I call solo economic dependency, which means if they're a person not working, they're not making any money. And so the business itself becomes a deal flow machine, a cash flowing machine for you, so that you can be able to travel around the world and do whatever you want to do. And the land investing business keeps your deal flow to keep selling the property. And so that's really the key piece of the education is, how do I become a CEO of this business? And what are the pieces I need to have in place, and the infrastructure and the software, the people and the systems and processes, so that I don't build myself another job.
How are you putting everything together? Because with VAs, obviously the majority of your business is automated, but for that part that's not, when you've sourced your VAs from Jamaica, how have you successfully found virtual assistants? And maybe what have you used whatever software you use to assist with training, or just kind of keeping in touch with them, the workflows? Is there anything like this that you can share with us for people, whatever industry they're in, that are looking to expand with utilizing VAs?
Yeah, we use Notion.io to have all our playbooks. And then as far as finding VAs, there's actually services out there now that already have pre-trained virtual assistants that understand the land business. So a company like landvaforyou.com, landmasters.us, there's Parcel Viewer out there, parcelreview.com, that'll do your due diligence. But ultimately, if you don't want to use an agency, the best way to do it is do it yourself first. Create a Loom video of yourself doing the work, put that Loom video into ChatGPT, have it create your SOP or your playbook for you, and then hire 2 or 3 inexpensive virtual assistants and test them and see which one has the most emotional labor, and which one goes above and beyond just the instructions and can think for themselves. So 1 is none, 2 is 1.
That's great. That's great. Yeah. One thing I found with VAs over the years of using them for 15 plus years is that I think people make mistakes with them when they hire one and they don't understand the amount of time that they're still going to have to spend with them, getting them to how they want it done. You know what I mean?
Yeah. We call it the 30-to-1 ratio. So if it takes you, say, an hour to do that task, then you're going to invest 30 hours in training that person to do the task that takes you an hour. And so that's sort of how we think about it. And that way, when we are onboarding a new VA, we're taking full responsibility that this is on us and our team to properly spend the amount of time with them so that they can be totally competent. Now, after that 30-to-1 rule, right, and they're not getting it or they're making mistakes, well, that's when we know, okay, this person's just not in the right seat.
No, that's a great way of putting it. The amount of time that you have to spend and invest with that person. And if they're not successful and you haven't spent that time with them, then you know kind of, hey, it's maybe on me that why they're having a problem because I haven't given them the correct directions. And I've had this before when I started working with VAs before. I wouldn't give them enough instructions with it and enough guidance. And then when you did, everything kind of worked out a lot better because that's what they were waiting for. Because, you know, it's just one of those things that you know this industry, they might not know it as well. And you're kind of explaining how you want to do it, how you've done it. And like you said before, doing it first and then handing off to them, that's a great way of doing it.
Yeah, absolutely. So you don't want to abdicate, you want to delegate. And if you don't do it yourself first, now it's a blind leading the blind, and you really don't even know how long it should take them. So you don't even know the 30-to-1 ratio because you haven't done it.
No, a lot of great information there. Mark, as we're wrapping up here, what are some of the main factors contribute to your success from your previous W-2 life into what you're doing now and all the way into your personal life?
I think consistency. Showing up every day, and it just compounds. Every little thing that I do, right, from breath work to meditation, just taking care of myself, right, mentally, physically, that compounds. Getting a good night's sleep every night, that compounds. And then just showing up every day and trying to get a little bit better in what I'm doing, and also realizing that I should only probably be working on the things that only I can do. And so my job becomes, how do I have no job? And really, working on those leadership skills, those delegation skills, and creating the systems and processes so that if my main goal is total freedom, well, how do I really have total freedom?
True. Oh, that's great. How can our listeners learn more about you and your business, Mark?
Yeah. So Charles, I would say thelandgeek.com is a great place to go. I'll give you a link to give to your listeners so they can get the book Dirt Rich for free, just pay shipping. And they can really go dive deeper into the model and see if it resonates with them.
Fantastic. Well, thank you so much for coming on today, Mark, and sharing all your secrets within raw land investing, and looking forward to connecting with you here in the near future.
Thanks, Charles.
Hi, guys. It's Charles from the Global Investors Podcast. I hope you enjoyed the show. If you're interested in getting involved with real estate, but you don't know where to begin, set up a free 30-minute strategy call with me at schedulecharles.com. That's schedulecharles.com. Thank you.
Nothing in this episode should be considered specific, personal, or professional advice. Any investment opportunities mentioned on this podcast are limited to accredited investors. Any investments will only be made with proper disclosure, subscription documentation, and are subject to all applicable laws. Please consult an appropriate tax, legal, real estate, financial, or business professional for individualized advice. Opinions of guests are their own. Information is not guaranteed. All investment strategies have the potential for profit or loss. The host is operating on behalf of Syndication Superstars, LLC exclusively.